From living out of a van and working at Taco Bell to becoming a PGA Tour winner and millionaire, Will MacKenzie was just a stinky hippie with no real direction in life. Until 1999, when he watched his idol Payne Stewart win the US Open. It was this moment that sparked something inside of Will, and with no training, very little money to his name, and just a burning desire to prove that a Taco Bell employee could become the most unbeatable golfer in the world, he decided to take one last shot at golf. This is the story of Will MacKenzie. Will MacKenzie, born on September 28, 1974 in Greenville, North Carolina, was thrown onto the golf course at a young age. He began playing at the age of 4 with his oldest brother, and as a country club kid, he was always able to play golf at Greenville Country Club whenever he wanted. In fact, he already earned his first trophy when he was just 4 years old, and throughout his childhood, MacKenzie was a fixture on the junior golf scene, dedicating his summers to the sport. His talent was evident early on, as he quickly rose through junior golf ranks in North Carolina, and even in middle school, he was a standout player, resulting in everyone assuming that he would continue into high school and beyond. But this is when things took a turn for the worse, because when MacKenzie was 14 and played in a junior tournament, he blew a lead and lost the event, which caused him to put his clubs away. You see, while everyone was jealous of MacKenzie's ability on the course, he got tired of the golf scene. He even said playing golf all summer was like wasting his summer.
Man, I just wasted the whole summer playing golf tournaments.
But luckily for MacKenzie, golf was not his only sport. He was a versatile athlete, and this interest in other sports is ultimately what pulled him away from the game of golf. In his last 2 years of high school at J.H. Rose in Greenville, MacKenzie played soccer and football. He won the job as the kicker for the football team and was an all-state kicker capable of 60-yard field goals. His brother Ken remembered Will, the second youngest brother, making a game-winning 48-yard field goal in the driving rain. In the fall of his senior year, MacKenzie sat down with the football coach at East Carolina University, Steve Logan. Logan saw what an athlete MacKenzie was, and he invited him to compete for the spot as starting kicker. At the time, Will was a skinny, long-haired kid, and everybody thought he needed to clean up just a bit. His chance to clean up and play for East Carolina was right in front of him, but Will didn't take it. The real problem here is that Will wasn't the most dedicated student, and he wasn't really a responsible kid overall. With a 1.8 GPA and a 940 SAT score, he would have to work hard if he wanted to make it to East Carolina University, and working hard at the time didn't go well with the easy, laid-back lifestyle Will was trying to live. Ultimately, a big-time position in college like that wasn't in the cards for MacKenzie. His lack of commitment to one path, one sport, or his academics would send him on a much different journey, one that ultimately had him working at Taco Bell. After high school, MacKenzie decided to attend Lees-McRae College, which was a far cry from East Carolina University, as it's a small school located in Banner Elk, North Carolina, not far from MacKenzie's hometown of Greenville. And this institution was not known for its golf or football team, which left MacKenzie having to focus on academics and being a good student. As you can imagine, for a guy like Will, not playing sports and focusing just on studies didn't work out so well. In fact, he admits to not attending many or any classes, and after a semester at Lees-McRae College, MacKenzie was done. College life just wasn't for him, and he decided to leave to pursue a life of adventure. And guess what? This life still didn't include picking the golf clubs back up. His first stop in his new nomad life was to head out west. However, he needed money to do this, and his parents weren't footing the bill. MacKenzie started washing dishes at local restaurants and selling grilled cheese sandwiches at Grateful Dead concerts to gather enough money to make his way to Wyoming.
You know, there's something about a grilled cheese, I don't know, it just worked there. So I became one of the grilled cheese vendors, and I had a double Coleman stove, and I just sit out there and sling grilled cheeses.
MacKenzie was 19 when he packed up his car in Greenville, North Carolina, pocketed $100, the sum of his savings, and pulled out of his family's driveway. He was done with North Carolina, golf, football, and soccer. With no clear plan and very little money, Will embraced a free-spirited, laid-back lifestyle that would see him living out of a van, taking on a series of odd jobs, and exploring the extreme sports world that had always fascinated him. His first stop was Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where he worked at Taco Bell. The Taco Bell job wasn't glamorous, but it was a way to get by while he settled into his new life. Jackson Hole, known for its incredible mountain scenery and its popularity with skiers and snowboarders, provided the perfect backdrop for MacKenzie. Will wasn't in a rush to climb the career ladder. Instead, he was focused on soaking in life's experiences. His job at Taco Bell allowed him to work odd hours, and most importantly, gave him the flexibility he needed to explore the surrounding mountains. He slept in the back of a van in a down comforter, and it was enough for Will. As the winters in Jackson Hole rolled in, Will spent his days snowboarding with no real home or responsibilities tying him down. The van became his base of operations. Friends called him the stinkiest of the stinky hippies, a long way from the collared shirt and saddle shoes of his early childhood. You have to remember that Will grew up in small-town America, playing in golf tournaments by the time he was 4 years old. Now a vagabond in a van with a part-time job, the people who knew Will early on in life wondered how this could be the same guy.
When I would come back and visit for like the holidays, they were just like, hey, there's Will, total dirtbag hippie living in Montana.
He says he never had a full-time job or health insurance and basically lived without a plan. As MacKenzie calls it, he lived a total dirtbag lifestyle. The entire time he was living this type of life on the road, he never had more than a few $100s in his pocket, or to his name for that matter. When he had had enough of Taco Bell, Will went back to dishwashing, working at a lodge and also a bar and grill. Still, Will was not chasing paychecks. He was chasing his passion for extreme sports, thrill, and a love of the outdoors. He had nothing in his way, not even golf. At this point in his life, Will didn't even watch golf on TV, let alone swing a club. During these winter months in Jackson Hole, he focused on snowboarding, perfecting his skills, and exploring some of the most rugged terrain in the United States. But as the snow began to melt, Will needed a fix for his extreme sports passion. He started rock climbing and whitewater kayaking, diving into the outdoor culture that would define the next few years of his life. He eventually took on work as a rafting guide on the Gallatin River. But as you can imagine, Will wasn't just a guide. His mantra was about pushing his own boundaries, testing his limits, and taking risks that many people, especially golf professionals, would shy away from. At one point, he spent some time in Alaska where he lived in a snow cave for 30 days. The snow cave was exactly what it sounded like, a tiny shelter carved out of snow where Will spent weeks without access to running water or amenities. It was an extreme form of living that aligned perfectly with the Willie Mack way of life. But living out of a van, working at Taco Bell, and chasing extreme sports would not work forever for Will MacKenzie. After a 3-month surfing excursion in Costa Rica and some time to reflect on his position in life, Will decided to head back to Greenville. He started thinking about his future and how he may want to have a family, a steady job, and maybe more than a few $100s in his pocket. Yet at this moment, the plan for this was still not to pick up the golf clubs and give professional golf another try. Instead, he was thinking about hammocks. Yes, hammocks. He bought 300 woven hammocks for a few dollars each and went back to Greenville to try to sell them for $50. Will thought this was a get-rich-quick scheme that would help solve all his life problems. His hammock plans didn't work out. He sold some and then ended up with a bunch of leftover hammocks, no job, and no real direction. But then that's where things changed for Will. He happened to turn on the 1999 US Open at Pinehurst, and while he didn't think much of it at first, that one decision would end up changing the entire course of his life. Willie Mack sat and watched Payne Stewart sink a 15-footer on the 18th hole to win, and for the first time in more than 10 years, golf seemed exciting again. After seeing Payne win, Will wanted to hit a few shots himself. He went out to the driving range, hit some balls, and then played golf a few times. At this point, Will felt something he hadn't in a while, so he consulted his dad and asked what he thought about giving golf another go. Will realized that despite everything he'd done, golf was still calling to him, and maybe, just maybe, it was time to trade his Taco Bell apron for a golf club again. His dad agreed and told him to give it a go. Will started practicing at Ironwood Golf Course in Greenville. The pro gave him a special deal where he could practice and play all he wanted to see if he could give professional golf a chance. You see, making it as a professional golfer is expensive. There are clubs and equipment to pay for, and you have to spend so much of your time practicing that you can't hold down a job. Still, MacKenzie was ready to give it a go. He turned pro in 2000 and played the North Carolina and Florida mini tours. He was on a path and finally headed somewhere forward. maybe for the first time since middle school. However, just when it seemed like Will's life was finally finding direction, tragedy struck. In 2002, while he was beginning to build his career on the mini tours, Will's father passed away suddenly from flu complications. At just 59, his dad was gone, leaving Will to carry on without the one person who had always believed in him. At the time, Will was sad and he wanted his number one supporter, the only person who initially believed in him, to see it all happen. That wasn't a possibility. Luckily, this tragedy didn't stop Will. In fact, it may have inspired him to keep pushing forward. By the time 2003 came around, Will had earned about $60,000 on the Golden Bear Tour, a mini tour at the time, and for the first time in his life, he had money in his pocket. By 2005, Will had made it to the PGA Tour, which less than 1% of golfers who are pursuing a career on the PGA Tour actually make. However, it's important to remember that making it to the PGA Tour and making it on the PGA Tour are two different things. His 2005 year wasn't a great one, and Will lost his PGA Tour cards. But if you think he picked that Taco Bell job back up, think again. Will was determined to keep fighting for his dream. He won his card back at the 2005 Q School, and then in 2006 won the Reno Tahoe Open. A Taco Bell employee now became the winner of a PGA Tour event, and for this day, the most unbeatable golfer in the world. Now, Will had a little more money in his pocket, $540,000 to be exact, and more importantly, he earned a 2-year tour qualifying exemption. Remarkably, by 2007, he had made over $1 million on the PGA Tour. A stinky hippie living out of a car and working part-time at Taco Bell was now a millionaire thanks to a great golf swing and a little determination. But this is not the story you think it's going to be. Although Will MacKenzie might have been the most unbeatable guy on tour at the Reno Tahoe Open, staying on top is a different story. See, when you take a guy who spent years living out of a van, working on jobs and embracing a dirtbag lifestyle, and suddenly hand him $1 million, things don't always go as planned. For Will MacKenzie, the freedom and sudden wealth that came with his success on the PGA Tour was both overwhelming and exciting. He didn't have the structure or discipline of other professional players, and he quickly found himself living beyond his means. Will was caught in an unsustainable lifestyle. What seemed like a dream come true soon became a wake-up call and a nightmare as his financial troubles spiraled out of control. He still had only won the Reno Tahoe Open, and in 2008 also won the Viking Classic in a playoff. But as good as he was and as unbeatable as he was in those days, Will MacKenzie wasn't Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson, with millions of dollars sitting in the bank. Living the PGA Tour lifestyle didn't work out so well. Despite earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, his expenses far outpaced his income, like when he purchased a $2 million house with a water view in Jupiter, Florida. And then in 2012, Will was broke, maybe even more broke than when he was working at Taco Bell back in Montana. Will eventually realized that living in a massive home with $1 million view was unsustainable. His income had dropped significantly, and he was never all that great at managing money when he did have it. By 2013, MacKenzie had downsized dramatically, moving into a small townhouse that he said was perfect for him and his family. From a van to $1 million house on the water to somewhere in between. At this time in his life, Will also ran into some marital trouble. He ended up getting divorced and got custody of his 2 sons, Maverick and Nash. But after all the ups and downs, Will's story wasn't over. He wasn't headed back to Taco Bell in the van. Even after losing his dad, losing his PGA Tour card, and facing financial struggles, Will kept pushing. He was determined to find a way back to the game he loved. He wanted to once again be the most unbeatable golfer in the world, even if for just a day. In 2014, he had one of his best seasons, finishing in 11th place in the FedEx Cup standings, with 5 top 10 finishes and earning over $1.7 million, far surpassing his previous best earnings in 2007. In 2014, MacKenzie almost won again at the McGladrey Classic, finishing tied for second after a dramatic hole-in-one on the par 3 6th hole. Despite this remarkable shot, he lost in a playoff to Robert Streb. After hitting rock bottom, he had made his way back to being one of the most unbeatable players in the sport. Will felt like he was working on the right things, like he had stopped searching. He described himself as a hamster on a wheel, and at this point in his career, he felt like that wheel had finally slowed down and let him move forward. When you look at Will MacKenzie's career, it's not just the on-course results that stand out. It was how Will MacKenzie reshaped his life off the golf course. The challenges he'd faced had taught him more about discipline and self-control than any trophy ever could. And now, with With his family and life in order, he was determined to keep pushing forward. In recent years, MacKenzie has continued to compete on the PGA Tour, participating in various tournaments and maintaining his status as a professional golfer. His story remains an inspiration, showing that even a Taco Bell employee can make his way to the top. But did you know there was also a golfer who was considered to have zero IQ, but still outplayed everyone? To find out more about that story, click on the video on screen right now.